This is the Holland Assets podcast where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Holland Assets podcast. This is episode number 77. We're talking about April financials today. I am Craig, and over there he is...
Chris.
Chris?
You got me. You're stuck with me again.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. So today we're going over April financials. There is a lot to talk about because you kind of teased this last month, that April was going to be an interesting month to talk about. March was fantastic and wonderful and all the superlatives you can imagine. And you said April might be a little sketchier. So
yeah, it's a little bit more on the other end of the spectrum. So yeah, we'll get into the details on that. So
okay,
it's been an interesting month. We'll put it that way.
Very good. Well, I am looking forward to getting into those details. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody, go to hollandassetsllc.com. Check out the full show notes there. People can comment on things, and they can also go to Facebook and search Holland Assets. Find us there. Make your comments, put your questions in, something you want us to address during the impact tip, which is coming up at the end of this episode. And then lastly, if you enjoy the show, if you like what we do, if you appreciate what we do, then please go and leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Google Play or whatever service you use to listen to your podcast. We would really appreciate it. Leave a nice review, and it helps other people find the show. And that'd be great.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that people can kind of give us a little attaboy for the hard work we put into these things, is just give us a little review. That helps us out a lot. That's
all those times I've said that to you off mic, they don't count.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
The pats on the back, no.
Well, today, before we talk about the numbers, I have to ask you, as is our wont, how's the road treating you? How's the road treating the company? How are things going?
It's going pretty well. You'll remember I had to haul a load for Mike not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I did a delivery for him here in Salt Lake, and it was he had picked up a certain type of commodity, and I was just delivering it, and it reminded me that there is something very interesting that goes along with this commodity. And I don't know how different this is. We haul all reefer loads, and we reefer trailer stuff, so sometimes we'll do dry loads too. This one happened to be a dry load, and I don't know how big of a difference there is in the different types of seals on dry loads, but with reefers, there's something specific with this seal on this type of commodity. It seems really a little bit out of balance to me, kind of funny, and so I thought we'd talk a little bit about it.
A seal being, explain this to the newbie here.
So if you're watching on video on YouTube, you'll see I've got some examples of seals, and I'm putting this in the show notes too. There's a video. So this is what you use you pull up to a shipper, you get your trailer loaded, and you put this seal on the trailer where you open and close the door, and you can't open the door without breaking the seal.
Okay.
And so it's just how the shipper and receiver knows that
nobody's touched this.
Nobody's touched it. Nobody's messed with it. So there's these little plastic ones. And you can kind of break these open with your hand. There's little metal ones like this, and another one like this, and they're a little bit more secure, but still just a pair of lineman pliers, wire cutters. Break into these pretty easy. But the most secure, without being an actual like padlock or anything, is this type of
so he's holding up a green, it's kind of a green plastic,
but it's got a plastic shell, but the inside of it is metal, so that's a metal bolt.
Okay.
So you have to have bolt cutters to break into this, to open it up. So it's not the kind of thing that most people are carrying around on their truck. A little bit harder to get into, a little bit more secure.
Okay.
So this is the seal that I'm talking about. It was
pretty intense.
Pretty intense, and it was carrying this specific commodity. And every time I've hauled this commodity, I've got this type of seal. And it's the only type of commodity that has this high of a level of security.
Okay.
And so now guess what that commodity is?
Guns. You're a gun runner, Chris.
Not guns. It's not the super expensive electronics or anything like that. It's beer.
Beer,
yeah,
okay.
Beer. What are they afraid the drivers are going to steal the beer and take a drink driving down the road?
Wouldn't you be?
Oh, well, maybe. Yeah, you don't want that to happen. That's for sure.
So that's interesting. Do you know, or maybe I can't ask. I'll ask it this way: was it a large national chain brand, or so it wasn't like
this
craft
particular
beer.
time. It was more of one of the more exclusive beers, or one of the ones that's a little higher end. We'll put it that way.
Oh, okay.
But I have hauled more of the just the regular beers in the past. But they all have this the same kind of lock. Yeah.
Okay.
You maybe it's because it's the most easily stolen or the most desired product. I don't know. But,
well, it's
got to make sure that beer is secure.
It was man's first invention for a reason, right?
Yeah. There you go.
That's interesting. All right. So what else is going on out there on the road these days?
I did something that's kind of cool. I think people like. I just had a PM, the service done on my truck, oil change.
A PM being
the preventive maintenance. So
okay.
like the oil change, a little bit more elaborate than that. A place called Iron Maintenance, and I did a time lapse video of it.
I'm sorry, say that name one more time.
Iron Maintenance.
Am
I talking too speakly?
Fantastic.
No, you like that.
All I heard was Iron Maiden. And so I was like, no, they didn't name it Iron Maiden. Iron Maintenance is awesome. So well done, whoever named that.
Yeah, so I did a time lapse video of it. It's pretty cool. I'm going to put that in the show notes, and you'll see it post on Facebook here in the next day or two as well.
Okay. So I didn't know the name of them, but you had told me about this time-lapse video and said that it was really cool. And not only is the time-lapse video really cool, but you had a great experience with them, and it kind of led to a sponsorship. So they're our first ever sponsor on the show, and we're going to have a deal from, I got to get ready to say this. I love this name so much. We're going to have a deal from Iron Maintenance for listeners a little bit later on in the show after we talk about the numbers. So make sure you stick around for that. If you're running a truck, if you own a truck and you need to do all this preventive maintenance, then stick around. There's going to be a good deal for you coming up.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So Chris, should we talk about some April numbers?
Let's. Yes and no. I don't know if I want to all that bad this month.
Well, I demand it. So I'm afraid you have no choice now.
We've set a precedence, haven't we?
What's that?
That we give numbers every month, so we can't like just sweep this one under the rug and skip it.
Is this the one where you tell us all that Holland Assets is folding and you expanded too far too fast?
No, not yet. We haven't got quite that bad yet.
So, all right, let's start at the beginning. Tell me about what the total miles run.
So April was a tough month. We ended up adding a truck and having a driver quit. So we went from we had 2 trucks, and then the second driver,
2 drivers.
2 trucks, 2 drivers. The second driver quit right at the same time that we added a third truck. So all of a sudden we go from 2 trucks running full bore, adding a third truck, to having just one truck running and 2 trucks on the books. So insurance for 2 trucks, 2 or 3 trucks, 2 truck payments, making an insurance down payment in April because our policy renews in April. So a whole bunch of things happened in April that made it a tough month. And we're going to get to the numbers. It's actually, I'm painting a pretty bleak picture. It's not quite that bleak. We've actually had worse months than what we did in April. But we're going to talk a little bit about it because on the surface it looks bad, but in reality it really wasn't that bad of a month, and we'll get into that. But let's go over the numbers.
Kind of one of those things where the numbers don't look so good, but it's like a rebuilding year for an MLB team.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put it.
You're setting things up for future success.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're rebuilding. We're in a rebuilding month.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so back to my original question: how many miles did you run this month?
It was only 10,437.
Ooh.
So about normal for one truck. We really only had 1 truck running the full month.
Right. Okay. So you had 2 trucks sitting. Now, if all 3 trucks are running, then you're aiming for minimum 30,000 miles.
Correct.
From the 3 trucks to pay for those.
Yep.
Right. And then hopefully make some profit if you get above the 30,000 miles. Right. Okay. So 10,000, that's rough. And then the next number we'd be looking for is revenue?
Deadhead miles.
Deadhead miles. Yeah.
So
what was the percentage?
Only 800 deadhead miles, which is 7.5%. So a little bit on the high side, but still under the 10%, which is kind of the max that we ever want to see. And we started hauling a few potato loads again. That's where we typically get a kind of a higher proportion of deadhead miles because we're going all the way up into Idaho. It's about a 200-mile deadhead just to get up there.
Yeah.
But they're pretty good pans, so it's worth it.
Do you haul potatoes year round? Because that's an August, September crop, right?
It is, but they put them in I can't remember what they call them. They're like their underground bunkers, right? And so they just pull those out.
The potato pits.
Yeah, all throughout the year, and so they get delivered all year long.
Right on. Okay, so 800 Deadhead miles. What was the total revenue realized?
The total revenue was $30,775.14. So that sounds like a lot of money. That's really good for 10,000 miles. It really is.
And what does that give you as far as a rate per mile then?
So that puts the rate per mile at $2.94, which is also a very good rate per mile. But with that being said, it's a little bit of a skewed number, because even though we only had one truck running, we were able to lease one of our trailers to another. Yeah, it was actually to a restaurant that was getting their freezer replaced, and so they used the trailer as a storage.
Oh, interesting.
To store their food in while they were getting the freezer replaced.
That's some creative problem
solving.
It was
nice. So yeah, it actually gave us 1 week. We had it leased for a week, and it was really good. It was $3,600 of revenue. It was about a 50-mile drive down and a 50-mile drive back. So 100 miles and only this, and $3,600 in revenue. So that kind of skews that rate per mile a little bit, but not too bad. It's still in the greater scheme of things was a pretty good rate per mile. Okay. It probably would have been closer to like 250, 260, but
yeah, because I was thinking back to when you were pulling in like 180 or 170 back in the beginning, the olden times.
The olden days.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, 290, what'd you say? 294?
294.
That's pretty good. Okay. So with all of that, even with your extra $3,600 in revenue, what did that come out to profit wise? So
we had a loss again this month, $4,828.77 in loss. But so last month we had a $20,000+ profit. This month we lost about almost $5,000, not quite $5,000. So you combine the 2 months, not too bad.
Yeah, bit of a wash.
A little bit of a wash, better than a wash. We still, over the 2 month period, had a pretty good profit. But you know, that's kind of the way business goes. Sometimes you have good months, sometimes you have bad months, and really, we're going to dive down in a little bit more detail into the numbers than we typically do to kind of explain what that is. And in reality, a lot of this loss has come because we're trying to do what? We're trying to grow
the company.
Yeah,
right.
And anytime you try to grow a company, you're always going to have those up and downs. That's why in the first year, when you start a company, a lot of the times you lose money. It's you're growing from zero to something, right? And in our case now, we're trying to grow from one truck, and our goal is by the end of this year to be to 5 trucks. And that growth period typically always creates either a loss or a big reduction in profitability, because there's so much that goes into growth.
Right, they call it growing pains for a reason, right?
They do, absolutely.
So in this case, with this situation, are you going to call this a bad month then? Or are we just calling it a rebuilding month? Or are you going to go so far as to say, you know what, it was still a good month despite everything?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. I really like your analogy of a rebuilding month, because that's really what it is. It's you're taking a step back to be able to take several steps forward. And that's really what this boils down to. Or a temporary hit, but in the long run, it's going to make for a better thing.
Okay.
And we're seeing that in May. We're recording this about halfway through the month of May. We do have all 3 trucks up and running now, with so 3 drivers obviously.
And folks, he didn't even have to call me.
I didn't. Yeah, Craig didn't even have to step in the truck. Thank goodness. He still thinks you fill him with gas and not diesel.
Hey, I might have to bleep that out. Okay, so where do we want to go from here? You're calling it a good month, even though you lost some money. We're doing some rebuilding. Where do we want to go from here in this discussion? So
again, let's give a little bit of a comparison here. It's really, like you said, a rebuilding thing. When you're starting a business or you're growing a business, it's very normal. You look at, as you remember, I'm a fan of Tesla. Well, Tesla's been around for 12, 15 years, and they'd been around for over 10 years before they actually started to have any kind of profit at all. And a lot of people would still argue that Tesla's not profitable because a lot of their profits come from selling
government grants, right?
Well, no, not anymore. It's more now. They're selling carbon offsets to other automobile manufacturers.
Oh, interesting.
And so that makes a part of it. So that's just a great example of it's hard that first little bit. It's hard when you're growing because you're just reinvesting so much money. And so you take for example what we've done, where a lot of that expense came from. We bought 2 new trucks, so we have a higher truck payment. Don't have the revenue catching up with that quite yet because we haven't been able to get drivers into it. We had to pay for insurance up front for 3 trucks, and we had to pay our insurance down payment in April. That's a big portion. And now, we brought Nate on as a partner, and the both of us are spending more of our time kind of on the administrative side of the business, which really isn't what directly brings in profit. We're not out driving the trucks, although Nate did do a trip in May.
Oh, nice. I didn't know he had I didn't remember that he had his CDL.
He does. So he did one trip in May, but so that makes money. But the other stuff that he's doing in the long run will make money, but it's not directly making money right now. So we're still paying the both of us a little bit of a salary so that we can dedicate more of our time to the business. So, if you add all of those numbers back in, we would have swung that, $5,000 loss to well over a $5,000 profit.
So basically what you're saying is that you are a big drag on the company.
I am a big drag on the company. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Greg. Thanks.
That's me.
You're so kind.
Yeah. No, but tell me more about the losses. So you're talking about these salaries, the trucks sitting.
So we don't have any variable costs. I think this is where you're going. There's no variable costs. You're not paying for fuel. You're not paying for that kind of stuff, but you still have the fixed costs. Whether that truck's running or not, you've got your fixed costs, like your truck payment. So the interest expense on the truck, that still happens. The insurance payment, whether you're running or not, still happens. And then our, wages, Nate and I's, that still happens whether the trucks are running or not. So those fixed expenses still have to be covered.
But you're not paying a driver per mile. You're not paying for fuel costs. Chris, fuel.
Thank goodness.
Not gas.
Yeah, not gas. Diesel.
Diesel, that's
Diesel
right.
or fuel. Fuel's acceptable.
Well, that's what you taught me. I'm going with it. Okay. All right. So, anything else that you want to talk about as far as these expenses and what you did run into this month that you might not have otherwise, and vice versa?
No, that's really what it boils down to, is just having to cover those fixed costs even when we don't have the truck running. And it was a little bit, to an extent, a perfect storm. The fact that we had our second truck that had only been running for about a month and a half, the driver quit right at the time that we're adding on. So instead of just having to hire one driver that we were expecting to hire, all of a sudden now we have to hire 3. Yeah. If we would have had 2 trucks running in April and still hadn't been able to find a driver for that third truck, it would have been a different story. We would have been, I guarantee you, just about guarantee, we would have been profitable. Yeah. But the fact that now all of a sudden, unexpectedly, we're looking for 2 drivers and have 2 trucks sitting rather than just what we expected one, it just, those kind of hiccups come along in any kind of business. I mean, that's what happens. That's why I stress all the time: save money, have a nest egg. We've got all those things, so it's not going to kill us. It still sucks, but it's not going to put us out of business. Right.
That makes sense. Now, I've got a question for you that's off book, Chris. Okay, I'm springing something on you, but it comes to mind because I wanted to remind people that they can go check out the numbers, they can go check out the profit and loss statement, et cetera, these documents that we're reading from. They can go to HollandAssetsLLC.com, check out the full show notes, and it's going to have these documents there. Let's just stick with the P&L, the profit and loss statement. Will that get more complex and more difficult to read now that you've got 3 trucks running, or is it just a matter of the numbers are kind of getting a little bigger?
The numbers are really just getting bigger. There will maybe there's a few expense line items that we add as we grow, but it's nowhere near in proportion to the number of trucks. So for the most part, it's really just bigger numbers. So it shouldn't make the profit and loss statements any more difficult to digest.
Okay, good. So people can still go check those out and still understand them easily enough. And I guess I'm just asking in part, I'm putting myself in the mindset of somebody who is an owner-operator and thinking, oh man, maybe I should go out and hire a driver, get a second truck. But, it's it's so tough keeping track of my numbers as it is, you know. So maybe it's not as big a deal as my brain is making it.
Yeah, that part, the profit and loss and the accounting is really not any more difficult. Now, speaking of adding drivers, I mean, that's the hard part. That's really like right now, the driver market is in the worst, like kind of the worst driver market I think it has ever been in my experience. You know, I've been in the trucking industry for 15 plus years, and it is hard to hire drivers right now.
I've been hearing this elsewhere. You know, read news stories or listen to this or that podcast or whatever, and people are talking about this. This is coming up a lot, and so I joke about getting into a truck and driving, Chris, but at some point
we may have to call on is this not the A team, the B team, the C team? This is probably like the Z team, right? Yeah, Craig's on the Z team.
No, I guess my point is, okay, I'm not going to get out and drive a truck. But for those listening, if there's somebody you know who's thought about doing it, now is a time to jump in, right? I'm guessing, you know, just theory of economics, you know, supply and demand, you probably get pretty good money for driving a truck right now, right?
Yeah, wages for truck drivers are going up. But another thing that's kind of interesting with this whole situation is I don't think there's ever been a better time for somebody to jump in from being a company driver to being an owner operator. And the reason behind that is... we should
have led with this, Chris.
We should have. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but the reason behind that is because there's such a driver shortage right now. Big fleets aren't able to keep up with the freight market. So the supply and demand is way out of whack. There are way more loads than there are trucks out on the road. And so it's really easy for somebody that's got a little bit of experience to go buy a truck and be able to find loads. Like we've talked about in the past, oftentimes how hard it is for new authorities to find loads and find brokers who will let a haul for them. And there's still some of that there, but it's nowhere like it normally is. Brokers and shippers are so desperate to get their products hauled from point A to point B right now that they'll essentially take a gamble on a new authority that they wouldn't have in the past, and rates are higher. And so now I really truly think is there's never been a better time to make that leap, because as an owner operator, you've got more bargaining power than you've ever had before, because there is such a short supply of trucks. Not because there aren't trucks out there, it's because fleets are having a harder time filling those trucks with drivers.
And it's not that this will last forever. There's always ups and downs. Markets are cyclical, all that stuff. And so the market won't look like this forever. But I'm calling to mind all the conversations we've had in the past. That first year, especially the first 6 months or so, those are the toughest ones to get somebody to take you on. And so if you can jump in now, then shoot, you know, 6 months, 12 months down the road when things have cooled down a little bit, you know, hopefully just cooled down a little bit, not gone the opposite way. But when things have cooled down, you're then in a position to say, hey, you know, I've been running for a year. I've been running for however long.
Yep. My only word of caution with that would be is don't go out and think just because you can afford the payment on a brand new truck right now and a brand new trailer or whatnot, that doesn't mean you should go out and get that, because you need to set yourself up if you're going to do this so that when there is a 20% or a 30% reduction in freight rates, you can still cover your truck payment, you can still cover your trailer payment and some of your other expenses. So don't go hog wild on buying stuff and encumbering yourself or with debts that you're going to have to pay even when those rates go way down. Just be careful so that you can continue to make payments, you know, even if there is a reduction in freight rates.
Go the Bubba Blackwell route, right, where he bought the really cheap truck to get himself started. And by the way, if you listening to this, if you haven't listened to the Bubba Blackwell interview, please go do so. It was fantastic. What a great conversation.
Yeah, I actually just got an email from a listener that I've had some email correspondence with in the past, Mike. And he actually bumped into Bubba in the last week or so and met him.
Wow.
Yeah, they both ended up, I guess, delivering to the same shipper. I thought that was kind of cool.
There you go. How about that? That's fantastic. All right. So, Chris, I want to move on to our impact tip. Now that I've taken us way far afield from our April numbers, we should get to our impact tip. But before we do, I promised people a good deal on their maintenance. So tell me what you got.
So Iron Maintenance has said that they will give Holland Assets listeners a 15% discount on their preventive maintenance services. So that's awesome, because they're already really super competitive in price, and kind of their business model is speed as well. And that's really probably as or more important. Their goal is to get somebody in and out in less than an hour. Eventually they want to get to less than half an hour, having three guys. Mike, the guy that I've kind of been working with and is kind of trying to build Iron Maintenance up, said that their plan is to get into under 30 minutes by having, three people working on a truck at a given time. One person working on the bottom, one person kind of working in the mid area, and one person working on the top, so they aren't tripping over each other, but they can get a truck in and out in 30 minutes, which would be absolutely phenomenal. They're not quite there yet, but that's what they're kind of shooting towards. So they're a growing company. They've got 12 locations all across the country right now, including places like Salt Lake, Dallas, Indianapolis, Charlotte, and Phoenix. There's more. You can go onto their website. I'll have that in the show notes as well. But what you need to do to qualify for that 15% discount is you need to give Mike a phone call before the end of June and kind of get your name on the list. And then as long as you go to one of their locations by the end of this year, you'll get that 15% discount. So give Mike a call. His phone number is 801-678-4749. And I'll have that in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay, one more time, 678-4749.
Yep, and just give Mike a call, get on the list, let him know that you're listening to the Holland Assets podcast, and he'll mark you down for that discount. And then again, you can use that anytime throughout the rest of this year.
Yeah, and this is a great way for people to show their appreciation for the show as well. You go get something for yourself as far as the discount and the maintenance and all that. That's for you, but it helps us and helps Mike, and it's a win-win-win all around. Go give him a shot.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So tell me, Chris, what is our impact tip for this week?
The impact tip for this week is kind of related to the last impact tip we did a couple episodes ago, and that one was to follow through. So after you follow through, follow up. Anytime you have interactions with people, it is a good idea to follow up. So like, for instance, if you deliver a load to somewhere, after you deliver the load, I like to call the broker or at a minimum, shoot him an email, just say, hey, I've delivered the load. Everything went well. Appreciate the business. That way you're developing the relationship. We talk all the time about it's important to network and develop relationships. And then that's just a good way. It's a super professional thing to do, to follow up with people, especially if you tell somebody you're going to do something for them and you do that, give them a call and let them know you did it. You're kind of in a way self-bragging a little bit, but
that's what the game is, right? You need to do that
sometimes.
Yeah, no, yep. I think this is fantastic. This is a great tip. There's a line between staying in contact and being creepy, but it's not a fine line. It's a wide line. Some people think, I don't want to bother them. They're busy. They don't want to read my email. They don't want to take my call or whatever. But if you're taking 45 seconds of someone's day to call and say, hey, thanks for your business. I really appreciate it. That got done. Hopefully next time something like this comes up, I'd love it if you thought of me.
Yep. That helps you stick out. That's
all it takes. Nobody else is doing that. Your competitors aren't doing that. It's a good way, like you say, good way to kind of stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, it makes a big difference for people. So it's a really good thing to do.
Yeah. So, and it's one of those things where I get it, Chris. I'm sure you get it. There are people out there who, they don't like the human contact. They want to sit in the truck for a reason, right? Yep. I don't want to talk to people. Well, at a certain point, get over it.
We've talked about
a quick
this.
Call.
It's getting out of your comfort zone, right? That's one way. If you're like that, which I am, I'm really more of an introvert than I am an extrovert. I'd oftentimes rather just be avoiding people. And if you're that way, you just have to get outside of your comfort zone and interact, because in the long run, that's going to make your business better. And that's what we're here doing this for, is to have a good business that's going to provide us a good life.
Well, there you go. Well said, Chris. I think we're good for this week, unless you have anything else that you want to say to wrap this up.
That's all I got. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
All right. Yes, I appreciate it. Everybody go to hollandassetsllc.com, like I've said a couple of times already. And so more importantly, now I'll remind everybody to go check out the deal with I get to say it again. Iron Maintenance. Such a good name.
That is a good name.
So go check out Iron Maintenance. Call Mike at 801-678-4749 to get that deal, and tell him that Chris sent you. I mean, you can tell him I sent you, but that won't mean anything to him.
Nobody wants to, or nobody knows that Craig sent him. You can't even drive a truck.
I'm sure
You're the Z team, remember?
Oh boy, that hurts. That hurts. All right, and on that note, thanks for listening, everybody. We will talk to you next time.
I'm sorry, I'm such a jerk.